I didn't hear the music anymore when she said it. The ballroom was full of laughter, champagne glasses clinking, powerful people pretending to care about one another, but her whisper cut through everything. My age isn't a problem, right? Her hand tightened around my arm, not like someone asking for reassurance, but like someone afraid of the answer. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just an escort I had hired for appearances. This was a story that was about to change both our lives. And expose a truth I had spent years running from. And if I had walked away right then, none of what happened next would have been possible. The invitation had been impossible to refuse. A high-profile charity gala hosted by people who measured their worth in headlines and stock prices. I was expected to attend. Expected to smile. Expected to bring a woman who looked like she belonged on my arm. That's why I contacted the agency. No emotions. No attachments. One night only. She arrived 10 minutes early, wearing a simple gold dress that didn't scream for attention but somehow demanded it anyway. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup minimal, her posture careful. Like someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. She introduced herself as Lena. Her voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. They kept scanning the room, the exit, the floor, like she was memorizing escape routes. On the drive to the venue, she didn't talk much. Just answered politely. When I asked if she'd been to events like this before, she hesitated before saying yes. Too long of a pause for someone confident. At the entrance, cameras flashed. She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. Inside, people stared. Some smiled politely. Others judged silently. She played her role perfectly. Smiled when required. Laughed when others laughed. She was good at pretending. But pretending leaves cracks. Halfway through the night, while we stood near the balcony overlooking the city lights, she leaned closer. Close enough that only I could hear her. My age isn't a problem, right? Her voice trembled, not with guilt, but with fear. I turned to look at her properly for the first time. How old are you? I asked quietly. She swallowed. 18. Just. The music felt suddenly too loud. The lights too bright. The agency hadn't mentioned that. You didn't lie, I said slowly. You're legal. That's not what I asked, she whispered. I realized then, this wasn't about legality. It was about worth. Before I could answer, someone interrupted us, congratulating me on my recent business acquisition. Lena stepped back instantly, the mask returning to her face. But the question stayed with me. And it followed us into the night. We left early. I told the driver to take her home first. When the car stopped outside a small, aging apartment building, she hesitated before opening the door. Thank you, she said softly. Then, almost as an afterthought, you're kinder than most. I watched her walk inside. And for the first time in years, I felt something break open in my chest. Because kindness wasn't supposed to be the most noticeable thing about me. And because I knew, deep down, that this story wasn't over. She didn't call me at first. I called the agency, pretending it was about another booking. I asked casually about Lena. They told me she'd stopped accepting requests. No explanation. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. One rainy evening, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Hi, a familiar voice said. It's Lena. I'm sorry, I wouldn't call, but you said I could if I ever needed help. I didn't remember saying it. But I knew I had meant it. She told me everything that night. About aging out of foster care. About taking care of a younger brother who didn't know where their parents were buried. About how being an escort wasn't a choice, it was survival disguised as confidence. No one ever asks if I'm okay with it, she said quietly. They just assume I should be grateful. I drove to her apartment without thinking. When I saw how little she had, how much responsibility she carried at an age when most people were still figuring out who they were, something inside me shifted permanently. I didn't rescue her. I didn't offer money or pity. I offered options. education, stability, time. And something more dangerous than all of that, respect. Months passed. She went back to school. Her brother started therapy. She stopped apologizing every time she spoke. And one evening, sitting across from me at a small cafe, she laughed, a real laugh, not a practiced one. "You know," she said, smiling softly, "I don't feel like I have to pretend anymore." That's when I understood the truth. The party hadn't changed her life. The whisper had changed mine. Because power isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you choose to protect. And love isn't about age, money, or appearances. It's about seeing someone when the world only taught them how to hide.